There it
All
is.
right, welcome everybody. This is Harry. I'm the manager of PERG, and we're delighted today to have with us Bo and Marcus, who are going to talk about implementing RFID. I'll hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, Bo. You just call me Bo. I'll save you the trouble of trying to pronounce my last name. Bo with Rental Tracker. My role is in operations with Rental Tracker. Been at it for about going on my 12th year. Prior to that, I spent a few years there at Cinellis. Prior to that, almost a decade working on film productions and sets. And prior to that, I was in the military doing IT systems analyst. So kind of just get that consolidated experience, and this is where I am right now with Rental Tracker. Hand it to you over, Marcus.
Hi. Okay, cool. Yeah, Marcus. I'm the Chief Technology Officer over at Rentex. Been there 9 years now, I think it is. Um, Came over here from what was the former VER, and joined up over here, and um, we started implementing RFID during COVID, and ran with it from there forward. And just here to help fill in some blanks for Bo, I guess, as to the physical application and what it feels like using it on a pretty good size scale. So it's all yours, Bo.
Thank you, Marcus. Absolutely relying on you to jump in and provide real world scenarios and hands-on experience, being
Yep.
from the software standpoint. So I have a presentation presented. They're just general guidelines and talking points. Obviously this is an open discussion. At the end of the presentation, I believe we have an hour here, so I'll make sure to be mindful of the time, and we can have an open discussion for anybody on the call. Okay, so I have here a general presentation. Go ahead and there you go. Whoops. Okay, so we'll start with the obvious. So this presentation here, I understand there is a range of people here with either prior knowledge of the topic or those jumping in code that I believe is useful to give a general introduction to set the tone. People from just beginning to explore RFID. There should be people this being recorded to watch later. People who are in the midst of implementing RFID or looking into it. And there should be people already implementing RFID that are looking at to improve the process or looking at technology to brainstorm ideas, especially for someone like Marcus, who's been doing it for a few years now. So what is RFID? RFID is, as the name implies, the abbreviation is radio frequency identification. It is a technology that uses radio waves to automatically detect assets with the RFID attached to it. For the RFID to be activated, these are what we call in our industry passive tags. Passive tags do not have a battery. They don't emit any waves. It's not like an Apple AirTag. The passive tags are activated by a reader. The reader is either a handheld mobile reader or a fixed reader, a portal that emits radio waves to activate the passive tags. In our industry, it's intended for businesses such like rental houses, studios. It helps improve the visibility and accountability of operational efficiency and gives value to your operations. Okay. So one thing, once again, this is part of having best practices and implementation. So I'm going through my talking points here. What's very important is you need to begin with a business problem, like any other project before you do a proof of concept or before you cross that starting line, right? What are your pain points, right? Do you have warehouse bottlenecks that are there for outgoing inventory, for incoming inventory before you decide going that? Perhaps you want to see loss prevention, right? You want to do loss prevention for high value items. You want to prevent theft, or maybe there are reoccurring assets, regardless if it's high value or not, that are constantly being missed. On that note, there is inventory for example, misplacement. You realize that the inventory doesn't go back to where it came from to the wrong storage location. Perhaps it's in inventory. it's in QC, it's not yet available for rental in stock.
Yeah,
On that note, please
I'll
do,
jump in a little bit, Bo.
please do, please do.
You need to, when you're looking at launching into the world of RFID, you have to look at your entire workflow from A to Z. And you need to figure out what are the first pain points that you want to um, address, and you have to prioritize those. One of the things when it comes to implementing RFID, and Bo, you actually have it as your last bullet point here, is when people have asked me previously, what's the best way to know how to start with RFID? Really, the answer to that is to know where you want to end with RFID. Because if you need to look at that whole workflow, and you have to let your mind wander, and you have to think about use cases you may not even have an applicable situation for today, but you might be able to use it later. If you do that and you think and you do some research with the RFID itself and what it can do, look at other use cases and go, gee, that would be nice to implement. Make sure that at the point of implementation, you're keeping all of those pieces in your scope, because it can change how you apply that implementation. Make good decisions at the beginning so it doesn't make it more difficult later.
Thank you, Marcus. On my second point here, just in regards to defining measurable business objectives, obviously, when you are looking into this, in addition to identifying the problems Marcus had mentioned, jumping in code, you want to have those objectives so that you can, for those of you who are looking to invest, or you want to notify your management to that this will improve your processes, you want to have a measurable business objectives, right? In other words, you don't want to overpromise or set expectations that you can meet, right? It has to be it's significant to improve. I'm going to go here to my next slide. Sorry, I'm jumping between two screens. Okay. This is something that I talked with Marcus as well. Probably aligns with his last statement, is process first, technology second, right? You want to map your current workflows, right? That helps you identify the your pain points. The goal is the process is standardize your data. Standardize, perhaps there are configurations or settings within the software that can improve your internal processes. Sometimes, investing in a new technology or doesn't necessarily resolve all problems. You need to clean house first and explore or implement any possible changes before you go down that road. If you want to speak to any of this, Marcus.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
a good, solid, clean database is a key to success. If a database is giving you a headache and you're not in RFID is just going to amplify that headache. It's not going to solve it. I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle to understand, because the more organized your data is, the less processing effort it takes for the system. And it makes it all just flow better from beginning to end. It helps you analyze the data better. One of the nice things about RFID is the statistical data that you can recover from it. You can see overscans, you can see missed scans, you can see locations, you can find stuff in your warehouse. RFID has a lot of capability that, to be honest, it's hard to even understand how much capability it has until you're in it. But yeah, it's very important. The software RFID is almost useless without it. And to your next bullet point, Bo, is assign a
Yes.
project lead. You
Yes.
need somebody who's going to be the main decision maker. You can't, with RFID, if you make too many decisions by committee, you will end up with a mess. And so there has to be somebody who's going to draw the line in the sand, and it's going to make people angry sometimes. But that is part of the process to do it right.
Thank you, Marcus. On that note, the project lead should obviously be someone who's not only who can understand or adopt or learn new technology, but also understands operations and the needs as well, the liaison between the two. Right. Okay, going to my next right here. Pilot before full deployment. So when you do cross that starting line, right, it's very important that you start with a subset of data, either it be just one department in the shop or a specific type of asset. I recall when this was implemented in the early stages at Sony, when Cindy was running solo at a time, they started off with distro cables, right? Those were their proof of concept. These are bulk items or high value items, right? Start with that subset of items. Then when you're getting tags, right, part of your processes is to validate the best tag placement, based on both the placement of the tag, based on the surface material, the type of tag you're using. And I'll dwell into those details after this. And what type of reader you're going to use, either it be a mobile or a fixed RFID reader, which I'm happy to discuss that in the open discussion. And after that pilot, then you can scale accordingly on that success. Anything to speak to this, Marcus?
Yeah, tag selection. Tag selection is a huge piece of success or failure. There's a lot of tag types out there. If you're in Europe or North America, you do have to consider frequencies. If you're going to have stuff moving internationally, most tags now can support both frequency ranges, but it's something to keep in mind. But tags come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. I mean, let's see if we can get them all on here on camera. But, significantly different sizes, different, they come on rolls. Let me see if I can get the camera to grab it there. Kind of, almost. There we go.
There you go.
But, and the most important part of it is, what's the environment it's going to be in? Do you need a tag that's basically self-armored, that it's going to be physically taking and sustaining impacts? Bo did mention it. Tags, if you're not aware, tags are sensitive to the type of material that they're mounted on. So there are tags that are made specifically for metal. There's tags that are made specifically for plastic. There's tags that are made for open air use. So it's very important that when you're researching tags, you look at the types of tags and the types of materials you're going to be mounting to. In our rental environment, Bo mentioned it, tag location. It's a make or break game. You have to look at it, you have to document it, and make sure that when new equipment comes in, that you're putting the tags in the same location. Having it buried down inside a road case behind a handle, you're never going to get a read on it. That handle might as well be, an RF shield. The scanners from any angle won't grab it. So you have to think about, how is it going to read inside the case? How is it going to read outside the case? Do you want something like this where you do have a human readable number printed on the outside, so that in case the tag fails, somebody can still read a number and physically type it in? Those are all decisions that you have to make as you start deploying this stuff. We use a lot of different tag types from different manufacturers, because we found that there is no universal solution. Different companies do different types of tags better, and there's different use cases and different applications. And the only thing you can do, most manufacturers, for a very low cost or no cost, will give you samples that you can test, and you don't have to permanently adhere them. When you're testing, good old, for us, packing tape over the label to hold it on the piece of material so that we could move it between materials to see how it works. All little things that we learned by doing. And it's even important that if you have to consider what happens if the RFID fails. Your one and only scanner in your warehouse got run over by the forklift, right? And you're not going to be able to scan by RFID. That's where, where are you going to place the tags so that when the cases are open, a person can walk down and collect all those numbers quickly? Contingency plans. It's all, I always work on the principle that I always want a backup. And if I can have a backup to the backup, that's the way I want to operate, because we can slow the warehouse down even though we don't want to, but we don't have to stop. So
thank you,
my
Marcus.
2
Thank you.
cents.
That's great. Yeah, you've pretty much generally covered this page
Yeah.
here, which is great. I would like to just interject it as well with regards to uniformity standardization, right? Once you get that tag placement, there's uniformity, there's proper manuals or handouts to your team, right? Especially for people onboarding. I understand, especially in the warehouse or with the procurement team, right?
Mhm.
You might have multiple locations, different team members. Having that standardization and uniformity across all locations and departments is so important. Okay.
It is. And like this tag in itself, this is
Mhm.
triple redundant just looking at it,
Right.
right? It's an
Mhm.
RFID tag with a 128 readable, scannable barcode by a traditional scanner combined with the actual printed number that somebody could key in. So you've got three ways to capture this tag if you had to.
Yes. Yes. One thing here as well with regards to vendors, Marcus touched base on that. With your vendors, obviously there's so many types of tags, but
Hmm.
from the perspective of what's been implemented, if you have that rapport or contact with your sister company or your neighbors, obviously consult them, right? Someone like Marcus, who's in the AV industry, he knows which tags through try and error, and these are his go-to tags. Then I have clients who are out in the UK who realize that they have their own local vendors. Please, by
Hmm.
all means, right? If you have your local vendors, once again, make sure there are EU frequency for Europe. But if you're going to venture out of tags that are not haven't been proven, tread lightly, right? Once again, it goes back to your pilot. Don't buy, a million tags and hope that's going to work. Buy a few subsets through your
Hmm.
pilot, through your pilots. And more importantly, I know this was a struggle during COVID or post-COVID.
Yeah.
Lead times, take that into consideration, right? Just like when you purchase your inventory, you issue a PO, there's a lead time from the manufacturers for your lighting equipment, for your camera equipment. The same applies for your RFID readers and tags as well.
Yep. And the chip shortages caused its own issues with the hardware, not just the tags.
Mm,
But I would say that for the most part, at this point, the industry's pretty caught up. Stuff is pretty readily available.
awesome. Thank you, Marcus. Back here. Change management. Once again, this is, with the understanding that I have a range of people with experience on that will be watching this or on the call, right? It's very important that you train your team, right? From the hardware perspective and software perspective. When I was with the military, it was so important that, the term they always use that, is cross-train, right? If
Hmm.
you if you drop dead one day, you want to make sure that your battle buddy, your team members are cross-trained properly. Everything is documented. What that does is it empowers your teams. That's why you need to establish clear SOPs and hold them accountable. Who's been trained? Who is the team leader? Who is the lead, the project lead or the team lead, and who are the team leaders within that department? And what's very important through my travels is that there's company culture as well. Obviously, you have industries between AV, set lighting grip, camera, but what's very important is the country as well. The country's work culture plays, believe it or not, a significant part, either if it's related to RFID or not. There is a culture that you have to be mindful of as well, even if it's the same company, but different countries. And of course, user adoption drives long-term success. And I made an additional bullet point there down below
Hmm.
through my experience is you have, in addition to having that project lead, IT support is very important because there will be people out there who just the first thing they do is say, "Oh, RFID is failing, it's not working," and little do they know they're just in an area where there's no Wi-Fi, or they don't have
Yeah.
access or they're on the wrong SSID. They're supposed to be on a specific intranet, if you will.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. It's making sure your warehouses have the right amount of Wi-Fi coverage to whatever device you're using to make sure that as you're moving around the warehouse that you can maintain good connectivity to your database. Also, the organization of your warehouse is something that needs to be taken into consideration. Did I say that right? Consideration. There, I got it right. Um, the in our case, we found that we had to reorganize our warehouses in some cases. Returns and inbound, outbound are now on completely opposite sides of the warehouse, as far away as they could physically be from each other. so that you reduce all of that, the crosstalk and cross scanning of equipment coming in versus going out, and to help keep again system speed and user speed up, so that they're not spending a lot of time parsing through unnecessary data. Um, that's a really big thing with RFID is it's agnostic as to what it's going to pick up. If it's there and it hears a response from the tag, it's going to pick it up, whether or not it's the tag you're looking for. To something Bo said earlier, you have to think about the tags. When I try and describe it to people, I say, think of it as a mirror. The bigger the tag, the bigger the mirror, because it reflects the energy
Mm.
from your scanner. The clearer the mirror is and the clearer shot the radio frequency has, the RF has to hit it, the better it's going to reflect it back. So if a dirty mirror doesn't reflect, neither will a tag that's obstructed by, a case handle, or some other piece of equipment sitting in front of it. So the clearer the shot, and these tags also are designed to actually be facing the reader. They don't do so good on the sides. It's again, thin mirror, big mirror, right? It's the easiest way to kind of describe how to orient a tag when you're looking at readers, especially if you're doing fixed readers.
Thank you, Marcus. And I'll definitely speak more to that when we get to the software side of things with regards to the tag size. Measuring RFID success. So I've added this point here, just as you are doing your proof of concept, you want to measure that success. And obviously, good, because the intention is that you want to implement this and give some objectives, what has been successful, right? Has it improved your inventory accuracy, right? For the loss prevention, are you getting better customer satisfaction? Are things going out the door, and at 100%, right? What they've ordered is what they got. Are things being returned, and to once again to prevent loss? Is it reducing labor and cycle count times, right? In lieu of hand counts or single barcode scans, right? Is it increasing your visibility of inventory across the warehouse and the value of it? One thing that I was discussing with Cindy last week was for audit readiness. What I mean by that is, I've had clients who's reached out and they get audited, right? When you don't have RFID or barcodes, is what that does is, in addition to your reporting, this is the value of your inventory. When you get audited, I've had clients who would say, "Hey, that is a high value item. Show me where that item is right now in the warehouse." And that's where RFID is very successful to actually find and locate that item within the shop if you were to be audited.
It also, to the audit point, it also takes a huge burden out of doing physical inventory. If you're a company that does physical inventory, it's so much faster. And
Yes.
it is important to still understand that, a tag, you might get a tag back without it being on the piece of gear you expect it to be. So you can't just take it at face value just because you read the tag all the time that the piece of equipment is there, because the tags fall off periodically. It is a reality of life. But that all said, physical inventory is enormously faster, and it's so fast that we are basically doing physical inventory year round. So we take certain product sets, and throughout the year, we're just doing subsets all the time. And because we don't have to bring the whole warehouse to a stop, and have everybody sitting there counting pieces. We can literally do it fast enough that we can do it throughout a normal workday. And we can insert as soon as we see a little lull in business in one particular office, and we're going to have a little slower day or something. It's like, bam, okay, we want you to do the physical inventory on this equipment, right? And you're not doing the whole warehouse, you're picking a specific subset. And it really, really, really speeds things up.
On here. So software, without to remain objective here and to provide an unbiased perspective, right? We keep coming from a software company, but generally speaking, the software is the required layer. Marcus spoke to that earlier on, right? The software obviously helps filter any duplicates, unwanted reads. What I mean by that is going back to Marcus saying about the size of the tag like a mirror, right? Yes, the larger the tag, right, the larger the antenna, but also the software is the required layer where you can control. You can control the read performance, the gain. Obviously, the software also validates um, actionable events, right? Is it already out? Is it already in? This item is in the wrong location. It's supposed to be on another job, but not this job. It's supposed to be quarantined. It helps align with your actual business workflows and automation. Okay. RFID data is depending on the software you're using, right?
Mhm.
Some people have ventured out to a third-party RFID software or the proprietary RFID software from Zebra in this example, and they rely on that integration into the rental software. So the pros and cons of that, there are limitations, right? There are limitations because when you add a software in between or processes, you're adding another bridge, right? A bridge is required to top this integration. On my last point here, just to speak openly here, is with the outsourcing and in-house, right? I understand there are people out there who are have already implemented RFID, either it be an in-house software or you're relying outsourcing on the other software. You can expect challenges with both. Okay, the obvious ones is support, right? And if you get outsourcing, right, the support, they might not understand your industry, right? They don't understand the rental business or what you do. So there is some explanation that has to be done, right? What you're dealing with. There are workflow changes, right? Internally, maybe you change your workflow, maybe something has changed. You now need to also tell that software, either in-house or outsourcing, that, hey, I need something to be changed because my software has changed or my workflow has changed. Then there's training, right? You've already set that SOP, for training. Oh, by the way, we need to retrain because that software or that process has changed, and so on. If you want to speak to any of this, Marcus.
Yeah, yeah. So
Sure.
RFID, some of you may be familiar with a WMS or a warehouse management system. That's one aspect where RFID is very heavily integrated. But in order to make that interface with your ERP, you may have to go through an API. You may have to manually transfer files. There's any number of things that can go on in those layers. If you want to be fully integrated, then you need an ERP like Rental Tracker that is already incorporating RFID handling. Both have an advantage, and I would say both have a disadvantage. In truth, there's a WMS is ridiculously powerful because it is designed, its sole purpose in life is to manage a warehouse. You're not going to write your orders and keep track of accounting and depreciation and everything in a WMS. It does one job and it does it really well. If you're going to run your warehouse where you want to go down to a shelf, an aisle, a shelf, and a bin, a WMS is probably the better answer for you. If you just want to know last known location type information, you can probably use an integrated ERP. Um, so it really depends upon how far you want to, like I said at the beginning, how far do you want to take RFID is when you have to be making those decisions. Um, Last known location is very helpful for, in our case, customer says we returned it, we say no, you didn't, right? We can take our handheld devices to their warehouse and we can search for that specific tag number, and we can find it in their warehouse quite often. And they're like, "Oh man, we knew we were sure we returned that." Well, we found it. No harm, no foul. So again, it all depends upon how far you want to go on that software level and what your expectation is of the processing. But that's, unique workflows to how you're going to run your warehouses in your company. So,
Yes. I'm gonna kind of sum it up here. So a couple general key takeaways. Happy to share this talking point slideshow as well. It's also being recorded. But a few key takeaways is just to be realistic and not coming off as biased, nor we're not trying to sell you anything. It's educational. So RFID is just not about just reading tags, right? It's once again going back. It is also software. It's also training. It's also empowering your team. It does not replace hand counts or barcoding. There will still be use case scenarios, right?
Mhm.
Just to align with realistic expectations, right? RFID is not a magic wand. It's going to replace hand counts. There will be cases where you still literally open a case and hand count and validate it's all there, right? There will be cases where you only need to grab a few items, 2 or 3 items, well, just count or barcode scan each one. But what RFID really does is it enhances and accelerates, it improves the quality of your work. The goal here is to empower your team. Just like once again, going back to my time in the military, is very important because people get complacent. Believe it or not, when you introduce technology, you empower your team with intelligence. They are inclined, believe it or not, to remain with your company. The retention rate, believe it or not, it empowers them. It empowers them to improve the workflow, do a better job. It makes them more inclined to stay part of the team. Repeating myself here, project leads. Once again, you have a project lead on your side. You have a project lead if you have a software provider, and if it's one person, that person needs to be the liaison between what is
Mhm.
happening day to day operationally, and they understand the software as well.
Yeah, and some things I'll speak to the benefits of RFID. There's certainly challenges that come with it. It is not a cure-all. That's one piece I will certainly, uh, you know, say. But one thing RFID does support tremendously is growth. Is if your company is on a growth path, implement sooner rather than later, because it becomes a really big hill to climb real fast if you're not implemented early. Um, Coming out of COVID, where in our industry, our segment of it, we downsized a lot. From a labor standpoint, we had to. There was no business. Um, Coming out of COVID, it took almost 5 full years before we had to staff back up to pre-COVID levels to handle more than 2.5 times the amount of business we were doing prior to COVID. So just to, RFID is hard to put into scale until you see a before and after. But that's the reality of it is we doubled our volume and we didn't have to come back up to pre-COVID staffing levels for almost 5 years and in order
Wow.
to exceed and maintain what we were doing previously. So, and we couldn't have done it without RFID. I mean, you now have one person that can process the work of what 4 or 5 used to do, and in less time, quite often. Um, a use case that, is a direct result of Rental Tracker when we were looking at it and we were testing prior to implementation. That you can find this publicly out there on use cases
Mm.
that I've been published in for other applications. We literally took a 20-minute process and reduced it down to 10 seconds in some cases. So that in labor savings alone and time savings in the warehouse, that kind of puts into scope why we were able to increase our volume so substantially without having to add labor to it. So again, it's not a cure-all, but it certainly has a use case if you apply it correctly.
With that, I have my last here. Questions, open discussion. I have a couple of subject matters. I understand for those who are on the call, if any operational challenges where they feel that RFID can improve their processes. Any questions to that? Any Q&As? Feel free, or we can still speak to it. Okay, I'll take that silence as they're still marinating. Feel free to raise your hand or add a question in the chat room. But my thing is I want to once again set expectations, right? There are people that are looking into this. If there are operational challenges that if they feel RFID can be helpful to improve, it's great to locate missing items where it is, of your bottlenecks where it's the outgoing or incoming from a big project. It really helps with those operational challenges. Current RFID deployment concerns and challenges. Anybody? I would love to regroup after this if there's anybody on the call after this recording. If they're currently in the process or implementing RFID, any challenges you come across, feel free to reach out to either myself or Marcus. If anybody, it'll be Marcus because he's gone through it. Real challenges. And more importantly, my third bullet point here is roadmaps and suggestions. Marcus is really great at being realistic. He doesn't just suggest things that are a magical wand. It's realistic. What I appreciate and helping put into layman's terms why this feature is needed. All right. I know we're kind of early on time, got 20 minutes left, but if any questions, feel free to speak to it.
We do have a couple of questions in the chat.
Oh, great. Thank you. Let me bring that up. Can you guide me there, Harry?
Yeah,
See,
if Wi-Fi connection is spotty, would this be a major issue?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, it can.
Absolutely.
It's most because usually you're not talking in real time to your WMS or your ERP. In WMS case, you may be talking real time, but in most ERPs you are not. So basically, it works as a file transfer. So your device that you're scanning with is going to capture the information and send it. Um, and so if that Wi-Fi connection is spotty, you can capture, right? But walk over to where the Wi-Fi is not spotty before you try and send the data. That would be my recommendation in that scenario. Or get with your IT department if you have one and have them get some more APs in your warehouses.
So how interested would the industry value MFGs putting RFID into products prior to purchase sales versus operations and having this fight? So that's from
Well, I'll let you speak to it, but I have an
Yes.
answer for that one.
Yes. I can speak to that. Yeah, we've come across several of those. So in the early stages, I would say probably a decade ago, and even till probably recently, a couple of years, I've had people reached out from, I won't name names, but companies in Asia or companies in India or even in America where they're they reach out to us with the intention, hey, I have tags that I've already purchased and already mounted them onto the assets, or they want to convince the manufacturer, right? The camera manufacturer, the lighting manufacturer to already have their assets RFID ready. Okay. The challenge with that is once again is the software layer, right? If you're putting tags on there, the software, either it be rental tracker, either it be your current ERP or WMS, right? Those tags need to be encoded a certain way because it is an encoding that allows the software to give a unique identifier. That way, there's no cross hibernation. You don't have the same tag with the same tag ID, right? It's also password protected. So that's a challenge. Then more importantly, every time you get tags, wherever you get it, they need to provide the data file, right? If you bought 5,000 tags, that data file will list a unique row of each tag ID per quantity. Without that data, if you've already how would the manufacturer know who is buying which item, which tag? I hope that makes sense. Any
Yeah,
questions?
and
Yeah, please
I'll
do.
expand on that a bit.
Please do. Yeah.
Possibly being revealed at Infocom is one particular manufacturer who is changing their molds and is going to be introducing the ability to provide RFID at point of manufacture. So with that being the case, in discussions with them, I did ask specifically addressing what Bo was talking about. We order batches and they're numerically sequenced, right? And they have unique identifiers that are encoded into the tag. And so it became a question of if we want to keep using our existing numbering convention, is that data we could provide to the manufacturer? If you're going to be buying 6,000 of these things through a DigiKey or somebody like that, right? You're going to buy a bulk purchase, but you're not buying direct from the manufacturer. How do we get it encoded? How does it apply? They are addressing that. Now, the good thing is as long as it's unique, you're golden. Nothing to worry about. If it starts duplicating numbers that already exist, then you start having problems. Something else Bo was talking about was unique tag numbers. The manufacturers of the tags can create more than one tag encoded the same way. So if you have products that are very difficult to tag, you can say, I want to do a run of this tag number, but I want them all done in triplicate or 4 or 5. And you can take that exact same tag number, same tag, encoded the same way, and you can put it in multiple locations on that device. So no matter which way your reader is facing, it's going to capture that number. The ERP, in this case, Rental Tracker, would recognize that number as being widget number 123, and then say, okay, I'm good to go. And the other tags just become redundant. It doesn't know it's actually reading different tags. It only knows it's reading that number, and that number corresponds to this item. So there are games that can be played that way on the physical side to improve your read status and everything else. Bo, I'll let you take the one on how seamless is the transition to RFID and RT Pro.
In RT Pro, well,
I can say it's really easy.
yes, yes. If you're already RT Pro is our product, the software. If you're already on RT Pro and you it's much more easier, obviously, than coming from another ERP or WMS in general. Your data is already there. It's a matter of just converting your existing data from barcode or non-coded into RFID.
And then if you already have barcoded product, there's a couple ways you would probably have to look at that, and some of it would probably be easiest to recruit Rental Tracker in that process. But if you're going to retag everything, just create new number sequences, retag them, and just do the replace function in Rental Tracker in mass, and then you take barcode 123 and it becomes XYZ 123 RFID, and it's done just like that. And then that tag's ready to read, and you're done.
Right. If I could say one thing, by doing that reassign from barcode to RFID, if you have the correct software to do that, we retain all of your history of your assets.
Yeah.
Every single time it's been checked out how much revenue you've generated. So we don't have you start from scratch. Right. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Also true.
Any software you pick should do that.
I see Guy is here. Guy, to answer your first part of your question, our prototype portal is running in Las Vegas right now. Got it going a week ago. We're currently working with Rental Tracker to fine tune the interface, but it is up and it is running. So we may go to dock doors. Right now, we actually have it on a mobile gantry. So we can move it where we need it in the warehouse, get it out of the way if we have a big load of stuff coming in, and move it to another area. That's pretty much the answer to that one.
You're kind of in test mode with that.
Yeah, we are in active use testing, I guess you could say.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And
it does read like a beast.
Oh, great. Encore is moving to Zebra MC33RS, which are pretty fully installed, and we're just starting out testing with those. One thing that really intrigues me, and this goes back to your comment around kind of a practical PI day-to-day with this technology, is that Christie Lights, a company that we partner with a lot, big lighting company in the industry, has put fixed readers in rack. And their own admission was that may be a little overkill, but I see at the same time, if we can dial in a sweet spot, then you have the ability to sort of ping the whole warehouse. like on a nightly basis. That's kind of end game I'm looking at. Was wondering if you guys are foreseeing that as an end, maybe Marcus, with more fixed reader use or not?
Yeah, and so the fixed readers themselves are only marginally applicable to that kind of situation because they want to read within their envelope where they're set up.
Right.
But the same antennas can be set to like a max power and max gain mode. That, if you had a Wi-Fi connection, a reader, you could literally drive around the warehouse on a forklift and,
Yeah.
do physical inventory if you wanted to. So there's different ways. This kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, where you really have to think about those, fringe edge use cases. Like, is this something I would even ever consider? Right? Because we are actually considering it. Now, as we're going down this pathway, we're getting there. RFID versus, I hope that answered your question, but
Yeah.
and that type of thing, that's where a WMS even comes in and makes it a little more powerful, is because now you can go to last known location. So if you have fixed positions within your warehouse and you have those labeled, aisle 1 through 5, aisle, 6 through 10, whatever that may be, and the tag passed under the reader that covers aisle 1 through 5 but didn't go through 6 through 10, then it's got to be somewhere in that area. And so then you can put the boots on the ground with a handheld to go isolate it. And you can even ping that particular reader with a WMS. You could say, I only want to know, is it still reading right here? And you'll see it ping back. And you're like, okay, I know it's over there. Now I just got to go put my eyes on it.
Right.
So there are definitely ways to do that dance. Though he was asking about Bluetooth low energy. I think RFID is still the best for a
Yes,
warehouse environment.
absolutely.
I don't think, in my opinion, BLE is probably going to be pretty difficult to use in, big spaces where our stuff is cased
Yes.
and stuff like that. I don't think it's going to have enough oomph.
Right. It kind of goes back to I've had people reached out from a smaller scale warehouse or even a shooter, right? They have a few items, maybe a few hundred items, and generally speaking, it's just not practical to either do Bluetooth or even active tags, right? Where yeah, passive
Yeah.
tags, more economical. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in terms of upkeep and having
Yeah.
to
Yep.
worry
Correct.
about battery life in an
Correct.
active tag. I certainly feel like I'm changing
Right.
the batteries in my air tags a lot. But
Right.
there was some excitement, I think, in the industry a couple years ago that I just
Mhm.
don't feel really went anywhere with that. Like
Yeah.
the promise has not achieved its potential.
I
So we're still pretty focused on passive RFID.
I
Yes.
wouldn't be too surprised if, say, in 3 or 5 years, somebody ends up developing a tag that has combined technologies in it.
Mm.
So you can do an either or both type read. Um, it wouldn't surprise me,
Gotcha.
Looking forward
quite
to it.
honestly. But um, again, the passive RFIDs, especially with the newer stuff that, Impinj has released for their inlays, um, the signal strength response is tremendous from an even smaller tag than they used to be. I mean, I've got one here on my desk that, you know, and this is actually still kind of a big tag. I'll actually put it in front of another tag so you can see it. But let's see if I can get all my fingers out of the way. It's so small, but it's, it's literally this little guy, comparatively. So, I mean, it almost fits on my fingertip. But
Yeah.
so, and that's, again, there's other tag manufacturers out there. I think a guy, I think I told you, Metalcraft and HID Global.
Hmm.
Those are the primary ones that we're using.
Right. And for those of you who are exploring tags, and generally speaking, once again, just to avoid repeating myself here, is reach out to your partners or your sister companies or your neighbors, right? What you don't want to do is to go down that path, which I'm speaking from experience here, where I've had clients who just went down that road and just started buying random tags, and it just doesn't apply. They're not properly encoded. it doesn't function properly with the surface material. You know,
Right.
it affects the functionality of the inventory, especially for for cameras and lenses. Some tags are nice and small. It's a little dot. Oh, it's great for lenses.
Handheld microphones are the nightmare of the industry for
Right.
RFID. There's no tag that fits.
Yeah, there's just no place for it. And then if it's a must, you know, in the case of Marcus with microphones, it's a must, then you're obviously sacrificing read range, regardless if you pump the power up on high on your RFID reader, right? You know, there are just certain things that are not reasonable. But then again, if you want to have that asset visibility, right, you need to have an RFID tag on it.
So I've heard a rule of thumb that
Yeah.
suggests you might want to have between 5 and 10 tags. Like you certainly you can't rely on having one tag, but you also don't want to be using and trying to manage a tag environment of like 100 tags. Where were you falling these days, Marcus? Is it more like 5 to 10, or is it more than that?
It's more than we probably, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3. There's about 4 to 5 real standard go-to tags, and there's about, and this varies from day to day because there's always the new widget that comes out. But you know, there's about 3 or 5 that I would put in that real specialty application, like trying to work on a handheld or, you know, a belt pack or anything like that, you know, or a lavalier. But yeah, at grand total, yeah, we're probably right around that 10 tag assortment.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So yeah, that's what I have from our standpoint. Once again, feel free to reach out to either Marcus or myself. You know, happy to be a resource, you know, for your due diligence, you know, regardless of which system you're using. Happy to educate, happy to be a resource. All right.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys.
All right,
Thanks,
cheers.
Marcus. Thanks, Bo.
Yep.
Great job. And
Thank you.
thanks everybody for coming today. Yeah, reach out to these guys if you have more questions.